Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
Do you have an office manager? And if so, how would you rate their job performance? While having a team member with the title office manager is fairly common in dentistry, what this title means and the responsibilities it includes tends to vary. For some, it's the senior-most front office person. For others, it might be an administrative assistant who pays bills. And for some doctors, in the best case scenario, we have what's expected is a fully functioning and productive executive managing every aspect of a dental practice. Now, we've spent a couple of prior episodes discussing the general nature of the OM position, at least from our perspective, including how to find a good one and sort of the broad strokes as to responsibilities and duties and so on. What we haven't had a chance to do yet, until now, is a deep dive into what an office manager's job looks like on a day-to-day basis, how the day should start, where they should place their focus, critical day-to-day management actions, as well as how to rate their performance. So that's what we're going to discuss on this week's and next week's episode, the office manager's day-to-day functions. And we're taking 2 episodes on this to make sure that we really do it justice so that you can sort of use this up against a checklist, which we're also going to be covering with you, to ensure that you have a full understanding of it to use it in your practice. My name is Jeff Bloomberg, and I'm your host, and I'm joined this week by Sabri Bloomberg, our Deputy Chief Operating Officer, who, if you've listened to the podcast, you definitely know Sabri. Sabri, I think we have you all set up over there yet.
I'm ready.
Now, I'm going to, if you haven't heard Sabri before, just to tell you a little bit about her, Sabri is in charge of all technical delivery here at MGE. She's our senior-most technical executive. Sabri's worked with thousands of MGE clients and from small practices to large practices. And if you're an MGE client or have been around MGE, you definitely know Sabri. So I'm really happy to have you on again this week, Sabri.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is going to be fun. And I know we've been looking forward to doing an episode like this for a while.
Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay. So I think the best place to start would be, let's say this is someone's first episode they're listening to.
Yeah.
What is our viewpoint on an office manager? Sort of what is an office manager for a dental practice and broad strokes?
Yeah.
What are they responsible for?
Okay. So MGE's viewpoint always has been to treat a dental practice like a business.
Okay.
Right? I mean, obviously the business itself makes healthy patients. It's healthcare. Right? But the structure and things like that have always been patterned after just traditional business systems. And, so there is no title office manager in regular business per se. It's more of a healthcare title.
Right.
Right? The equivalent, title in corporate America would be CEO.
Okay.
Right? So they are responsible not just for the running of the business, they are responsible for the expansion and profitability of that business, and everything that entails. They are not necessarily a worker. Right? They don't necessarily answer the phone or file insurances. The CEO wouldn't do that.
Unless it's a smaller business.
Unless
obviously.
it's a small business. And,
Right.
and, you see that in every business, and you see that in dentistry a lot. And it might apply to the people who are listening right now. If you have a smaller practice, obviously the office manager isn't just going to sit in an office and run the practice.
Sure.
They might be what we call double-hatted, meaning they have more than one hat or position.
Okay.
So they might be a treatment coordinator or filing insurances themselves while also being the office manager and actually running the business.
Because we're assuming it's not big enough to where it would justify hiring someone for that
Correct.
job. Got it. Okay.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. So that's what we're talking about when we say office manager. We're talking about an executive.
Okay. And obviously the points we've made, I think you've done at least 1 or 2 of these other episodes with me, is because sometimes you have this viewpoint with a doctor, well, I'm the owner, so I should manage the business.
Right.
But 90+%, the doctor is most valuable to the business chair side.
Correct.
If they're the doctor owner.
Correct.
And there's just no way you're not going to pay what you would pay a doctor to manage your business either.
No.
So it makes sense to have somebody who's actually running the business while you're focused on a patient.
Correct. Who
Yeah.
coordinates and meets with the owner and works off the owner's policy.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, good. So All right, so now we really get into it here.
Okay.
We've got, I know you have your office manager checklist there.
Yes.
There's a lot of writing on it.
There is a lot of writing on it. There is a lot of writing on it.
And I know we were going to go through it from the perspective of, because you wanted to walk through, what are they doing in the morning? What are they doing in the afternoon? How does the day end? What are they doing every week? And I know we wanted to talk about those steps so that if someone's listening, which we'll have this checklist as a download, by the way, folks. This is something you can work with your office manager on, or if you are an office manager, it's something you can start using.
Correct.
In the practice you're in.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So I think we should just start. How would the office manager's day start?
Okay. So just running day to day, the first thing that they should focus on is preparing for the morning meeting.
Okay.
Right. And a lot of practices do morning meetings, but the purpose, again, just like you say, an office manager could be just about anything in healthcare, right? So could a morning meeting, unfortunately. I've seen morning meetings that are clinical meetings. I've seen morning meetings that are motivational meetings. I've seen all kinds of morning meetings. So this is a morning meeting that coordinates the sales of the practice and the actual production of the practice.
All right. So we're focused on what this is going to happen in this practice that could be represented statistically today.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, how would that differ? Let's say, dental assistants and the doctors, and maybe even the hygienist, want to coordinate with how they're going to handle Mr. Smith at 11 who's really scared of coming to the dentist, or how are they going to handle this one patient? What cement are they using to, cement these inlays with?
Yeah.
That would not be covered in the morning production meeting, correct?
No, because that's more of a clinical meeting. And if you have a larger clinical team, they should have a meeting like that as well.
Just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Now, a morning meeting, and there's a lot of things on this checklist that assumes that you understand or are knowledgeable in business itself.
Okay.
And not just the systems of dentistry. Right? So I'm going to run through it and then explain a little bit, okay, this is a system and this relates to business knowledge and this is why we do these things.
Got it. Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's start with the morning meeting.
Okay. So the first thing that you need to do is morning meetings can become really annoying for everybody when they are not run well and people aren't prepared for that meeting. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that everybody's prepared for the morning meeting. Right? And I'll get more into that later. And you need to make sure that the information that's being brought to the morning meeting, because usually that preparation happens the night before, make sure that that preparation is still up to date. So the first thing that should happen is we need to make sure that our schedule is correct.
Okay. So, and this was just something I know that you've definitely had, I hate to use the word pet peeve, but I know it's a thing for you.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about a morning meeting here.
Yeah.
Right. So in this morning meeting, we're going to get, I'm assuming, statistics for the practice.
Yes.
Where are we at so far for the day, the week, the month, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then we're going to take a look at who's coming in today and what are we going to do with them, which I'll let you talk about.
Right.
But this pet peeve I know you've had is where these morning meetings sort of devolve into the office manager running it, which is better than having no morning meeting.
Sure.
And the office manager just talks the entire time and nobody says anything else.
Correct. Because it's like a morning lecture.
Got it.
Right. And the thing that you want to do as a manager is you want to make sure that people are taking responsibility for their individual areas. You don't want to just only operate like you're always giving the orders and everybody's just following orders. You want people to think with, this is my job and this is my participation in getting the patient healthy. Right. And you are bringing your own data to the meeting that's necessary.
And that's the reason I asked this, because you said the first thing, because obviously schedules change.
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing we got to do, the first thing that has to be checked before people walk into the meeting is what's changed about the schedule.
Correct.
So if you have a schedule coordinator, I'm assuming that's the schedule coordinator's job.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So they would walk into the meeting with, okay, folks, here's what's going on with the schedule.
That's exactly right. Were there any changes, any cancellations, anything we need to know about?
An emergency just called, wants to come in, blah, blah, blah.
Correct. And we want that data before we start the meeting so that the plan that we work out for the day is as accurate as possible.
Okay. And again, since we're doing a deep dive on this, so we may as well just talk, right? It's not we're not as structured as we normally are.
No.
Okay, so let's just say when we're doing this meeting.
Yeah.
So let's say first patient's at 9.
Yes.
When would this morning meeting start?
I would say everybody be there at 8:30, right? Make sure that everybody's prepared. Like that we have a chance to get the messages off the schedule. We have a chance to make any last minute changes that we need to make in order to make the day right. And then I would start the meeting. I would give yourself like 15 minutes for this meeting. It's a little bit dependent on the size of the practice.
That's true. If it's a larger practice,
you need more time. If I have one doctor with no hygienist and it's just a front desk and a doctor coordinating,
that'll take 10 minutes.
if that.
Including sitting down.
That's right. If I have 5 doctors, 3 hygienists, and multiple front desk people involved in the sales of the patients, now we have a longer meeting, or we might even want to break the meeting down into different teams.
Right. And again, I guess that's part of the issue, like why some people find meetings to be, anathema.
Yes.
Just terrible.
Yeah.
Is because people just drone on and talk about this or talk about that or whatever. They don't get to the point.
Yes.
I know. Maybe I'm just talking about myself.
No, but you're you're
like
not talking about
me.
yourself.
You know me. I'm not a huge fan I am a fan of meetings, what they should accomplish.
Right.
But I'm not a fan of taking longer than I need to, because meetings aren't production. They're sort of organizing for production.
That's right. We're just coordinating production. That's really all we're doing. What do I need from you in order to do my job, and what do you need from me?
Right. Well, it's like if we have clients here. If we're having a meeting to go over what's happening with our clients, it's like I'm doing that for the clients, not for myself.
Correct.
To make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
Correct.
And I don't need to unnecessarily drag it out or add a bunch of stuff people don't need to know about. It's like, let's get down to business and get it done. So meetings should just be very boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just a pet peeve of yours and mine to have meetings that run long, or where one person just lectures or gives all the orders for the day and there's no participation.
Which I run all the meetings, so that doesn't happen to me. No, I'm pretty quick with my meetings.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You are.
Mm-hmm.
You are. But it's actually the number one reason that I run into, besides not knowing how to run the meeting, but it is the reason why these meetings go in. In other words, a practice decides, okay, we should have morning meetings, and then they disappear after a few weeks. It's because they're so unstructured and they're so unproductive, even the doctor gets sick of them.
Well, yeah, if someone's saying I have to go to work so I can't go to the meeting,
yes,
that's usually sort of a red flag.
Very red flag, but you and I have both heard that.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're thinking it like, God, can this meeting please be over so I can get some work done?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
There's
not
something
good.
wrong with your meetings if that's what's happening. All right, so I'm sorry I've sidetracked us a little bit,
it's
but again,
fine.
I wanted to really explore this.
Yes.
So we're doing our morning meeting.
Yes.
So the scheduler makes sure that the schedule is all good or any changes.
Yes.
So then who's at my morning meeting? And I know this varies because we could have an office with 4 people in it or 40.
Yes.
Right? But minimally, give me sort of like small practice to larger practice. How would this morning meeting look?
Okay, so ordinarily you would have anybody involved in the delivery of the dentistry or the diagnosis of the dentistry.
Okay.
So you would talk about hygienists, key assistants, doctors in the back, and in the front, obviously your office manager, treatment coordinators if you have them, and then your scheduler, and then if necessary, your financial coordinator.
Okay.
Right. And that's pretty much the team that's the irreducible minimum that needs to attend these meetings.
Okay.
And as I said, if you have a team of like 60 staff, you have all these providers, right? You would break this down into separate teams.
Right. You might have one treatment coordinator that works with these 2 doctors and one that works with these 2, and they're having their own meetings in the morning.
That's exactly
at that point.
right. And then the office manager just coordinates everything from these teams and gets the information afterwards. You obviously couldn't attend 5 meetings at the same
Right.
time.
Well, I've seen it also where you might have sort of a junior office manager type who's running each meeting.
That's right.
And the office manager bops between or makes sure that they're happening correctly and stays on top of it. But that's a big office.
That's a big office.
Yeah, not a smaller office.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So we've got who's there. We've got our financial coordinator, scheduler, treatment coordinators. If we have more than one, we have our docs, we have our hygienist, any key assistants who are integral to the sales process and delivery process. And we're starting our meeting now.
That's right.
So the office manager is chairing this meeting.
That's right.
And what are we covering?
Okay, so the first thing that we cover is we take a look at where the statistics are at month to date.
Okay, so we're at practice statistics.
Yep,
Like,
that's the first thing.
okay, so now I know we teach our clients to manage on a week-to-week basis.
Yes.
Which obviously we're not going to get into in a podcast. We cover that in the Power Program.
Correct.
In sort of a nutshell, the reason we say week-to-week, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, Sabri, because this is
sure
the
you're not
example I've
wrong.
always used,
Yeah.
is, the common time interval used in dentistry for management is a month.
That's right.
How'd you do this month? What did we collect this month? Or a quarter or a year?
Right.
But you hear month all the time.
Right.
Or year, actually. You don't hear quarter a lot, funnily enough.
No.
Okay, so The problem with managing on a month-to-month basis is if you set a target for, let's do 100 this month, and you're not monitoring it on a shorter-term basis, daily or weekly, then, I mean, you probably saw this with new clients. Remember you telling me about this. You'll get a call from a new client who was supposed to do 100, and they're at 30, and it's the 23rd.
That's right.
Because nobody's looking at what's going on, and they're panicking, how am I going to handle this month?
That's right. So usually you would break it down into shorter time periods.
Right. So if you're doing it week to week, which is good, then, and we get into this, the why on this in the MGE Power Program.
Yeah.
Then you have a little bit more control. You would have known that month you were only at 30 by the 23rd. You would have known you had a problem by the 5th or 6th.
That's right. You would have adjusted.
Right. So we're looking at where we're at for the week and how that relates to our monthly target, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And now, since we have the time to discuss it, I'm just going to discuss that real quick, right?
Yeah.
And I know you have brought this up in other podcasts, is that these statistics belong to somebody. They don't belong to all of us. They don't belong to just the owner or the office manager.
We see this is interesting too, because, we've been in a lot of offices and we've seen this. Obviously, keeping a statistic is better than no statistic.
Sure.
Right? But then you're right. What I've seen is someone will go, they're the scheduler, and what would be the scheduler statistic would be production.
That's right.
I've seen other ones used. I'm not a fan of, percentage of appointments kept because that, whatever.
It's
right?
a useless statistic.
Well, for a hygiene coordinator, it'd be okay.
Sure, but not for a scheduler.
Right, because a hygiene coordinator's appointment value is similar each time.
Correct.
Whereas, if I'm a doc scheduler and one appointment could be worth $12,000 and another's a free reline, that doesn't work, right?
No.
So the scheduler status production, and they sit in the meeting. The office manager says, okay, so where are we at for production? What did we produce yesterday? Okay, so far for this week, we've produced $10,000. We did $5,000 yesterday, and we are at $46,000 for the month. So they're reporting this statistic.
That's correct.
Which is great, but there's no ownership associated with that statistic.
Correct.
Like you just said, it belongs to someone. I think you talked to somebody's staff member once. I remember you telling me this, and they thought their job was to sort of give that number to the office manager.
Right. It's their job to keep track of that number.
Right. Like they didn't associate that they're responsible for that number.
Right.
That number belongs to them and it's a reflection of their productivity.
That's right.
They had no idea.
That's right.
It was almost like me looking out the window going, oh, hey, Sabri, there's a bird.
That's exactly
I found a bird for you. There's a hummingbird. As opposed to, no, I'm responsible for this. This is my number. This tells you whether I'm doing a good or bad job.
That's right.
Yeah.
All the actions of this person's job should culminate into production. Therefore, they are responsible for that. They're the ones that control this in the office.
Right.
Right. So in an ideal world, I would like to know, obviously there's weekly and monthly quotas, right? And these quotas are set based upon what's viable for the office and expansion. And there is different ways you set
If I
quotas.
can interject there, we use the word quotas, right?
Yeah.
Like which, an amount you're supposed to produce. Other people might use the term goals
Right.
or targets. It's basically the amount you're setting that you want to hit for the month.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a goal.
Yeah,
It's just your goal. So let's say that, it's Wednesday and the quota for the week is 25,000 in production, for example. And so then if I'm the scheduler, what I'm supposed to say is, all right, so month to date, we are this much, right? Week to date, we are at this much. Like, let's say week to date, we are at 10,000. It's Wednesday today, so we are on track, right? Today we have enough production scheduled to stay on track, right? So to give a little bit of a report on what's going on with it and that we are on track for the day, right? Or if we're not on track for the day, what needs to happen to get back on track?
And here's something. I know that we're doing this checklist, but this is just it's gold in a sense because this is the thing that you've noticed and I've noticed goes really missing in these things.
Yes.
Right? Big time.
Yes.
So not only am I not associating that statistic with myself,
Right.
but then I go, okay, I'm supposed to do 25,000 in production this week. And obviously I'm dependent upon the doctor to a degree and, things like that. But I have
That's why we're having a meeting. We're
sure,
coordinating
but
all
I'm
of
supposed
this.
to take ownership of this. This
Yes.
belongs to me. I'm production.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so it's Wednesday morning. We're supposed to do 25. Let's say we're open 5 days or 4.5 days. I report, okay, we have 5,000 on the schedule today or whatever we're supposed to have in order to be on target. So
Yeah.
we're at 5,000. We're in pretty good shape. Tomorrow we got 6. Following day looks good. We're on track for 25. No problem.
Right.
Okay. So That's good.
Yes.
But again, let's say we needed to do 5 or 6 today to stay on track.
Yeah.
But we're only at 3.
Yes.
So then I go, okay, so yeah, we're supposed to do 25, but we're only at 3 today. Like, here's a problem.
Right.
There you go. Not looking at, like, ideally what you would want is this person walks into the meeting with, okay, we only have 3 lined up. Here's what I would like to do to resolve that.
That's right.
Here's
To
the
get back
ideas I
on
have.
track.
Yeah, and that's why I'm meeting with everybody to figure out like how we can all work together to do this, but I'm not just giving you my problem.
That's exactly right. Because the scheduler in this instance, in your example, might say something along the lines, or might want to coordinate. Well, we have Susie Smith coming in hygiene today. She does have outstanding production, right? Doc, would you be willing to slide her in there to get the production back?
Right,
on
we have
track?
an opening here. Susie
Yeah.
needs those crowns done. Maybe you could talk to her. And I would let everybody know here are the openings I have.
That's right.
So everybody's sort of on the hunt.
Yeah.
Knowing this is what we're looking for. Maybe this patient and I know we're going to go patient by patient when we get into
Right.
the individual stuff. But the idea is at least I'm looking at how to solve this problem because I'm really taking ownership for it. It is my problem.
That's right.
I'm not just immediately deciding that, well, I've reported the number and we're not going to make it. And that's that.
That's right.
But that is pretty common.
Well, that is, yeah. I don't even know what to say about
But
that. But
but
it's
I-
not just very common. It's actually the exception when somebody does do it
Well,
right.
and here's all I'll say as an executive, because I've trained a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to get into like, whatever, I'm an executive, blah, blah, blah. But I've trained a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know this.
Yeah.
But I think if you handle your staff that way, you're doing them a huge disservice.
That's right.
Because most people would like to be more in control of their jobs.
That's right.
They'd like to have that more control, more power, more ability, more capable of, because that's where advancement comes from and growth.
Right.
So if you just basically turn somebody into someone just reporting a number and you want to keep all the goodies and responsibility for yourself and not make them responsible, you're doing them a disservice.
You're not just doing them a disservice, you're doing the entire organization a
Well, of
disservice
course.
because you cannot expand that
But
way.
as an
One
ex-
person can't be responsible.
Sure, as the
For doing
executive,
everything.
I'm doing a bad job as an
Yes.
executive, but I'm doing them a disservice too because if I have somebody who really does want to grow and I'm putting that demand on them,
Yeah.
look, I need you. This is your thing, man. You need
Yeah.
to handle this. I think that's how people grow.
That's how they grow, and that is how they grow. But that you bring up another point here, which is the training component of the office manager hat, right? People don't walk into a job ordinarily with this mentality or ability to control, in our example, the production statistic.
Sure.
Right. So the office manager is expected to have a training protocol in place to train the staff to be responsible for their statistic and know how to resolve issues. So you can't just yell at people and going, why aren't you not coming up with a solution if you haven't trained them on how to do that?
Right.
Right. So getting up to the point where you can run a meeting this way does involve the office manager actually training the staff properly.
Right.
Right. So they can be responsible for their positions and statistics.
But, just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
I know I'm going off on this too
Yeah, I
much.
know.
How often do you see this viewpoint out there? Sort of this no control, no causation viewpoint. Well, I report the number and the numbers are bad and there's nothing we can do and blah, blah, blah. And that's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Is that pretty common?
Well, yeah, it is, but it's also created internally.
Well, no, I'm sure
Right.
it is
No,
by
no,
the
no,
executives, but
but
is
let
that
me-
a sort of a common viewpoint?
Well, of course it is, because we are not even telling people when we hire them what we are expecting from them,
Right,
right? We want you to schedule.
right. Now, by
Okay,
we
well-
don't mean you and me because we do, but you're saying
No,
we.
I'm talking about
I'm
not
kidding.
you and me.
I get it.
But like when you hire somebody,
Right.
How often you say, okay, well, your functions include keeping the schedule full,
Sure.
right? Answering the phone. If you have an opening, work on the overdue list or on your short call list, right? You're just giving them all this stuff to do. You never told this person what you're expecting all those actions, all that doing to lead towards. Right? You never told them, quite frankly, I don't care what you do. There's a bunch of things that need to happen that are part of the responsibilities of your position. But ultimately, I'm hiring you for a productive schedule.
Right. That's what you're supposed to make.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to make. And the way that I measure that is not by how many people are on the schedule, but how much production actually comes off that schedule for the day.
Well, the reason I asked you that earlier
Yeah.
Like, how often do you see this?
Yeah.
Because if it is a prevalent viewpoint, I'm wondering, and maybe this is, if you're listening, you might have this viewpoint that people just won't do that. Be responsible and really own their jobs and look at how to solve those problems.
But I don't think that's true.
Well, no, we know it's not
Yeah.
true, but I wonder if some people just are of that mindset.
Well, maybe if they haven't trained their staff properly and have stacked up enough failures,
Yeah.
right? You fail at something too many times, then you start thinking that that's just the way it
Right.
is. It's not possible. Instead of solving the actual problem, which is your training procedures aren't in place in order to create a person like that.
But then that also helps you detect if someone's a dud and you can't train them too. If you
Right.
have
There's
this, yeah.
obviously people out there as well that are not suited for that type of a position.
Right.
That are not suited for responsibility. Right. But if you have somebody like that, you just wouldn't keep it on a position where you need somebody who can do that.
So yes, so folks, they do exist.
Yes.
Is my only point. They're actually the majority of people.
You're
are
trying
like
to give
that.
people hope.
I'm
Jeff.
trying to give them hope. All right. So morning meeting.
Yes.
All right. So the first thing we're doing is getting statistics.
Yes.
We have a form for that statistics to keep. I'll
Yes.
put it as a download.
Yes.
These are the stats you're asking for on a regular basis.
By position.
Yeah, by position. Okay, good. So once we've gotten the statistics,
Yes.
and we know what's going on,
Yes.
what are we doing next?
So we're done with all of that, and now we're moving into the morning production section of the meeting.
All right, so we have our stats, we know where we're at month to date, week to date, all that kind of jazz.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is where it's
the question,
important.
sorry,
Yeah.
same people are in the room.
Same people are in the
Okay,
room,
good.
right? Because this is where we're coordinating. And let's first take a look at, okay, what are we trying to do in this section?
Okay.
All right. In this section of the meeting, we're trying to coordinate the sales for the day.
Okay.
Right? That's really all we're trying to do. And the reason we're trying to coordinate the sales for the day is because nothing else happens in this practice unless patients are accepting their treatment plans.
That's true.
Right? We can't get people healthy. We can't get any production. We can't get any referrals from happy patients because they're not happy because they didn't get their work done.
Okay.
Right? So usually the biggest barrier to patients getting their work done is they need to buy their work.
Sure.
Right? So this is where we coordinate, okay, who's going to educate the patient on what they need? Which provider is going to diagnose it if there's multiple providers? If the treatment is already diagnosed, and let's say that patient's in hygiene and they haven't presented, what part's the hygienist going to play in this? So this is where we coordinate everything.
Or might even be representing a case from a patient who was there 3 to 6 months ago, or a reactivated patient. Or
Exactly.
And what I'll do, we do have a handout for this.
Yes.
So I'll put it as a download.
Yeah.
The morning production meeting.
Yes.
Because we did the stats part.
Yes.
Now we're morning production. And I know we're not going to go through it line for line. I think we did a podcast on this at one point. And that sounds
have.
bad for me to say it that way. But now what I'd love for you to do,
Yeah.
because again, we've distributed a morning production meeting handout for a while. And we've always seen things that could be tightened up about
Yeah.
these when we go on site,
Yeah.
right? If you could give your viewpoint on it, like how that should look, how should this meeting roll, how it should look, that would be great.
Okay. So this is the important thing, or this is the part where people have to come prepared.
Okay.
Right, to the meeting. So what do I mean when I say prepared?
Okay.
Right? Well, that means that they have to know which patients they're seeing. If they're a hygienist, they have to have gone through the patients that they're seeing that day.
So I would have gone through, okay, this is Joe Schmo at 4:00. He needs 4 inlays.
That's exactly
Got it.
right.
Okay.
And they need to take a look at, all right, so there's different sequence of treatment planning, right? In dentistry, not everything's the same, has the same importance. Somebody needs a root canal, not as important as somebody needs a veneer.
Sure.
Right? So the treatment is usually broken down, as we discuss here at MGE, in like things that relate to their health, things that would upgrade the function of what they have in their mouth, and things that are purely aesthetic.
Sure.
Such as veneer, sometimes Invisalign, things like that, right? So the hygienist, for example, if a hygienist is going through the patients that are coming in for the day, she would take a look at, or he would take a look at, who is this patient? Is there outstanding treatment already diagnosed with this patient? They would look at the x-rays because they could see, oh, there's a missing tooth here. Yet there's nothing in the treatment plan about this missing tooth, to make sure that the treatment plan that they have, if there is an outstanding treatment plan, is complete.
Okay.
And then they can take a look at, is there anything that they would suggest the doctor looks at to upgrade the function, or anything that they would suggest upgrades the aesthetics
Okay.
of the teeth, right? And they have these notes, so they should come prepared to the meeting having already done this, so that we're not doing this as the meeting goes along.
Because that'll just extend our meeting.
Very much
yeah.
so. And plus also that opens the door to everybody talking about a patient and offering their opinion.
Right.
right? Like, oh, I think
I don't
this
think they
patient-
can afford it.
Yeah, it's like no, none of that. And really, quite frankly, right, that when the providers are looking, whether that's a hygienist or a doctor, are looking at these patients for the day, they are not diagnosing based upon the patient's pocketbook, known or unknown.
Sure.
Right. So they're purely doing their job as a doctor or hygienist or a healthcare provider. That's all they're doing. They're not their accountant. They're not their insurance benefit coordinator. They're being none of those things. They're just being their healthcare provider as they're supposed to be.
So let's go over the sequence a bit, because
Yes.
this is where we've seen these things get a bit lunky.
Yes.
So office manager is chairing the meeting.
Yeah.
Docs are there.
Yes.
Hygienist is there.
Yeah.
Scheduler's there. Financial coordinator's there.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think the financial coordinator obviously is going to be more integral with patients of record, because
Yes.
they don't know much about the new patients.
Right.
And our treatment coordinator's there.
Right.
So then office manager is going patient by patient by patient, and we're discussing each one to get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish with that patient that day.
Correct.
So let's say we start with you.
Yes.
And I'm the manager.
Yes.
And you're the hygienist.
Yes.
Okay, so we have your first patient of the day is Joe Smith.
Right. So then I would say, okay, Joe Smith is coming in for cleaning. Last time Joe was here, there were 2 crowns that the doctor had diagnosed that Joe did not accept.
Okay.
Right. On top of that, there's a missing tooth over here. I would like the doctor to take a look at that to see if there's anything that the doc wants to do with that.
Okay, and this is interesting. What if this is one of those recalls that don't require an exam?
Well, then we better get an exam scheduled.
Well, then I better get my butt over to the room, or I'm the OM in this exam, but the doc has to
Yes.
get over there and take a look.
That's right.
So we might be creating an encounter that wouldn't have normally, naturally, organically occurred on the schedule at that point.
Correct. And
know.
then I also know as the hygienist, like let's say the doctor's doing a root canal at the same time. Well, how's that going to work if I need him or her for an exam?
Sure.
Right. So that's the things that get figured out in that meeting.
Okay, because we look at it and we go, all right, so Doc, you need to get over into that room at some point between, 11 and 12.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's your first patient, between 8 and 9.
Yes.
So we take a look at the doc's schedule. Okay, and the assistant goes, okay, well, this part here, let's say it's not a root canal.
Yeah.
This is where the temp's being made. The doc can pop out for 10 minutes around 8:40.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be that the exam's done at the end of the
Of course not.
hygiene appointment. Sometimes in order to make this work, the doc would come in at the beginning
Right.
of the appointment. It really depends, but that's the coordination that's necessary.
So as the hygienist, I know now, Doc's coming in, and I might even talk a few things up. Hey, it looked like we talked to you about a couple crowns last time you were here.
Yeah.
What happened with that? Oh, I don't know. I was in a rush, blah, blah, blah. We should definitely talk to the doc about it a bit, because it looks like things aren't getting any better back there.
That's right.
And have you ever thought of having this tooth replaced,
That's right.
So then the hygienist is thinking like that.
That's right. The hygienist starts that conversation, especially when the hygienist is aware if the doctor has limited time. The hygienist knows they have to do a little bit more work on
They
this.
can help it along. And then you got the assistant on the other side.
That's right.
Making sure that he or she gets the doctor's butt out of their room into that room.
That's right. And make sure that the existing patient that the doc is seeing is comfortable while that's happening. And we have the treatment coordinator standing by, maybe even going into the room with the doctor at the same time. And if any insurance information is necessary, the financial coordinator knows right then and there
At
to
the
get
meeting.
that ready.
Okay.
Right. So we're not scrambling to do this on the fly. We've already planned it.
Would the financial coordinator walking into the meeting have an idea of how much insurance this patient, I forget what name we picked, Joe? I
Yeah,
picked a common
possibly.
name.
I don't remember.
Whatever this patient's name, your first patient of the day.
Yeah.
As the hygienist.
Yeah.
Again, I'm being the office manager.
Yes.
Would the financial coordinator have already come in with an idea of how much insurance Joe has left for the year?
They would
the
like
meeting?
to.
Okay,
They would
ideally.
like to. Ideally, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But what if if the doc wants to replace a crown and the crown is not, or it's a missing tooth and we don't know how long the
Right,
patient
right,
has
right.
had the insurance for?
So that's not
There's
going to
some-
be, we may have to do that on the fly throughout the day.
That's right.
Got it.
We may need to get that data, like if there is a missing tooth clause in their policy,
Sure.
or things that are very specific with regards to insurance that the financial coordinator is going to have to find out before.
All right. So ideally, actually not ideal, the way it's supposed to work, You know what your patient's treatment plans, at least the ones that we've already diagnosed, are. Doc knows doc's going to have to get over there. Assistant knows doc is going to have to get over there.
Yeah.
Treatment coordinator's on standby for when the doctor goes over there.
That's right.
And the office manager knows this is all happening.
That's right.
And then we go through patient after patient after patient on your schedule.
Correct.
Let's say the next person is, a 17-year-old kid and there's nothing going on. In which
Fine.
case, this is Joe, it's great. He's going to graduate from high school this year or next year. He's doing great. We'll see.
Fantastic.
Okay, and here's the next one. And we pick up on all the ones with the outstanding treatment.
Yes.
And then as far as the treatment coordinator then at this point, what is the treatment coordinator doing? Are they noting down all these outstanding treatment plans that they're going to be hopefully presenting that day?
Absolutely. Everything that gets decided in this meeting should be notated into almost like a target format. There's like a target or a list, an action list that gets made as a result of this meeting.
Right.
We know exactly what we're going to be doing today and who's going to be doing it. And it's not in people's heads, and we're prepared for it so that we know it's going to happen before it happens. And the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. Right? So yes, absolutely. They should have an action list as a result of this meeting.
Okay, so we've done that with the hygiene schedule, because what's funny, I've seen a lot of offices and they're hoping that all of their revenue is going to come from new patients.
Right.
But new patients are completely unpredictable.
Correct. This is much more interesting to do with existing patients than new patients. The only thing we know about a new patient is they're
Whatever
new.
they told us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so we've gone through, let's say, and obviously if it was multiple doctors, we might be picking which doctor is going to go see this patient.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because certain offices do whichever doctor's available. Well, I understand, but in the morning meeting, we can see which doctor's available and is going to do it.
Right. Okay, so and if there's any kinks on the schedule, we can work that out then.
Exactly.
We figure it all out. So now we've gone through hygiene.
Yes.
So let's say there's some new patients. Let's say the new patients, obviously if they see hygiene, it's a new patient. The scheduler can fill in any, blanks. Well, they called, they said they broke a tooth, blah, 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 which may or may not mean anything.
Correct.
And they go through all that. And then obviously, or if they're new patients on the doctor's schedule, same thing, but we don't really know much about them. Maybe they're calling, they wanted to come in and find out all about an all-on-X case.
Yeah.
But again,
You don't know.
they might just be shopping.
That's exactly right.
How can you do it for $15,000? Nope. Okay. Yeah. So we don't know. It's a new patient, completely unpredictable.
Correct.
So we're not counting on that.
That's right.
Now, if we get something from that, that's great.
Yeah.
But so really what we're looking at here, truthfully, unless it's a new patient we've already seen, in which case they're not new, and we
Right.
brought them back in for a presentation,
Sure.
which isn't a new patient,
Right.
we have some predictability. We're really looking at if we have a certain amount we're supposed to produce and collect today, how we're going to do that with their existing patient base.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what's everybody's involvement in this?
Okay.
Right? And at the end of it, what we figured out we can sell today, right? And that action list that we make,
Who's going to see who? What's going to do what?
we call that a lineup.
Got it.
Right. So at the end of it, we should have a lineup. We should have an action targets that figure out how the daily goal's going to be met.
All right. So let's say our daily goal today is $15,000.
Right.
And we have a lineup that shows we could technically present like 45,000 today.
Correct.
And we're pretty confident that we can close the third to half of it.
Oh, yeah.
Then we're in good shape.
We're in good shape.
But now let's take the other side of that.
Yes.
Our lineup is we need 15,000.
Yes.
We only have 5,000 potential.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay. So what do we do now?
Well, there's different things we can do. At that point in time, we would figure out, okay, well, what do we have outstanding from yesterday or last week that people were going to talk to their spouses, think about it, or whatever, that the treatment coordinator is going to have to follow up. Maybe we can figure out how to move a patient forward or get a
From tomorrow
patient
or the
in.
day after.
Right, that needs a consultation. Right? So that we can beef up the amount that we have to present that day a little bit. Ultimately, when that happens, when we don't have enough lined up for the day, it means that whoever was managing the office, and it comes back down to the office manager.
Well, that's what's interesting with all this. This is all the office manager.
Right. It means that the office manager didn't really look ahead. Right. And that's later in the checklist. So to not have these things happen to you. Now, obviously, there's going to be days like that. But if you have a day like that, the manager should realize that the failure was like yesterday or the day before.
Or last week.
Or
even.
last week even, right? And had they just been doing what they needed to do every day and looking ahead at the schedule and to make sure that we don't end up in this position, we wouldn't be sitting here scrambling.
That's true. And just for those, because I know that there's going to be people listening, and we've maybe alluded to this before.
Yeah.
there may be some people listening
Yeah.
and they go, well, I look at my hygiene schedule and there's hardly anything on it.
Yeah, but
But
that's
then, but hang
Go
on,
ahead.
sorry. What confounds them though is they look at their incomplete treatment list and it's humongous. But anyway, go ahead. You were going to answer this.
Yeah,
Why is that?
I actually see that a lot. What that is, it's such poor hygiene utilization, meaning so few patients are in their hygiene. Meaning that if I run a list of their active patients or their existing patients that I could reactivate against the available hygiene slots, there's not nearly enough slots available to service all their patients.
So this is an office with one hygienist that really should have 3 is what you're saying.
Right. So I
Got
only
it.
have slots for like a certain amount of patients. So the first people who are going to take those slots are going to be my quote unquote good patients.
Right.
Right? They're the easiest to get in. They're also going to clamor to get in. Right? So, and then I'm out of slots. So I'm not going to do heavy reactivation as a front desk person. I have nowhere to put these people.
Got it.
Right? So all your good patients are in hygiene, but they've already done all their work.
That's why they're good patients.
That's why they're good patients. So now I become new patient dependent. That's a problem.
See, I think people don't see this. I know you've been talking this up for a while.
Yeah.
But this is critical. Those patients who you say, okay, you need treatment X, Y, and Z, and they're like, oh, of course. Let me just do that. How much is that? Maybe it's
Yes.
not that easy, but it's pretty easy.
Yes.
Those are the ones who are going to be super compliant on hygiene.
Absolutely.
That's your top tier of compliant patients.
Correct. So if you only have slots for those patients, yeah, you're going to run into a problem where you no longer have treatment to sell in hygiene.
Because then the huge bulk of the patient base, the regular people, not the super compliant, wonderful dental patients, but
Yeah.
they're not bad people. It's the majority of your patients.
That's right.
Just the ones that need to be chased a little bit, followed up. They're busy, life's coming at them, and whatever.
Yeah. It's
Those
normal,
are the ones
normal people.
Yeah.
It's not your top 20%. It's not your
Right.
bottom 20%. It's that middle 60 where all your treatment is.
But then I've had that one hygienist for years.
Yeah.
My hygiene's not growing.
No.
So hygiene's now clean.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at my hygiene schedule and there's nothing there to sell. So I
Right.
think, but then I look at my incomplete treatment list, which is humongous. But then, okay, I gotta keep producing. So I'm dependent on new patients at that point.
That's right.
But then again, that's an office manager failure.
Right.
Because the office manager should be, well, we've often said it, the growth statistic for the practice is number of recall days in a week.
Absolutely.
Or recall patients.
That's
That should
absolutely
always
right.
be growing. Otherwise, you're bringing people in and just dumping them out the back door.
Correct. And unfortunately, that's how most dental practices do it. You and I talk about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, okay, I need more new patients. I need more new patients.
Which they do.
And yeah, they do. You always need to replenish.
But it shouldn't be depending on them.
No, because then you're starting your practice from scratch every month.
Right. That's
Right?
interesting.
It's just a bad way. No business would operate like that, but yet dental practices do somehow.
True.
But then they also wonder why their overhead's out of control.
That's true. Because it's a lot more expensive to get a new patient than to keep somebody.
Exactly.
So you should be getting new patients.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you got to keep the ones that you have. So, and if you look at the way Sabri's describing this morning meeting, really the only thing you can count on, like, okay, patient Jones, patient Smith, patient whatever, whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
Has XYZ treatment the last time they were there. So
Yeah.
they at least need that
Yeah.
and maybe more.
Yeah.
Once you look at them,
Yeah.
that's predictable.
Yeah.
Whereas with new patients, it's completely unpredictable.
You're right.
Who knows? They could be a really nice, great sounding person or whatever, and they want to do all this treatment, but they have a 520 credit score and can't get a cosigner.
Yeah.
And not saying that that's bad or whatever, but you can't base your whole practice
Well,
revenue
you can do
off
your
that.
best for every patient.
Right.
But you can only predict the ones you know.
Exactly.
Right. So,
All right. So we've done this meeting.
yeah.
We've gone through, okay, we got new patients at this time. We've got our recall patients at this time. And we figured out where the doctor is going to be to sell, where the treatment coordinator is going to be. And we've made an action list.
Correct. And we also do that for the doctor's schedule
Okay.
because the doctor might be seeing patients that have committed to only partial treatment.
So he or she should come at him again saying, hey,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's exactly right. So, I mean, and a doctor, what I find is if a doctor really is just convicted and certain in the way that they communicate with the patient, like, no, listen, I'm doing this side, right? And I really want to tell you, we need to do the other side as well. And the reason why we need to do it is because right now, I'm only comfortable with you eating on this side of your mouth.
Right.
That one's a disaster.
Or
right?
we've seen it where you do the upper arch and the patient was really reluctant to do both at the same time. They see the product on the upper arch and they're like, heck, let's do the lower one too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the doctor really, if the doctor says, I don't want to wait on this anymore, right? I want to do this. I need you to do this because you need to take care of yourself. This
Sure.
is important to you.
But again, if we're going over all those names, it might be, okay, we're on Doc's first patient of the day. We're doing treatment X and Y.
Yeah.
And we already know
Yeah.
they're doing a refi right now.
Right.
So they can't apply for credit. So we're going to be pushing that for a month. So the
Right.
doc wouldn't necessarily. I'm saying this so that people won't just think, well, I presented it to them last week and they said no. Should I do it again this week? No, you want to be intelligent about
Yeah,
this.
don't
folks.
be dumb.
Yeah.
Right. But then again, who's supposed to keep track of that? That's the treatment coordinator to make sure that that patient actually ends back up on the schedule.
Got it.
Right.
Okay, so now we've got our action item list.
Yes.
We've made this big old list of
Yes.
what has to happen, who's going to see what when, and we've done this quickly. I think we've spent more time talking about it than it'll actually take you.
It usually takes in a busy practice no more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, should be great.
As long as if everybody's prepared,
Yeah.
and as long as we're not telling stories about every patient.
Right.
Right. We're just sticking to the topic.
All right, so we've done our morning meeting. We have our targets.
Yeah.
We go, okay, good. Let's get to work.
Good.
Okay, so
then
what happens next?
the next thing that the office manager does is in that first section of the meeting, the office manager was going over where the production was at and where the collections were at, the new patient, all the other statistics that
Sure.
they needed to look at, right? Well, there might be some things that are not where they should be. Right, in the meeting. And the office manager should have noted those things. So that as soon as the office manager is done with the meeting, they get with those staff members individually and go over, okay, so, you are this much short on your goal.
Right.
Right? Show me exactly how you were planning on figuring that out. And work with the staff member to make sure they have a good grip on what they're doing that day to get it back on track.
Yeah, if we have like catastrophic numbers of new patients or something like this, they're
Right.
jumping all into the PR area and they're
Yes.
getting that sort of. So the OM is now, it's almost like triage at that point, right? They're jumping into the areas that are problematic
And get them back on track.
with that staff member.
That's exactly right.
Got
And
it.
then work with that staff member throughout the day without in any way doing that staff member's job for them.
Well, yeah, 'cause if you have to do their job, then what was the point of the staff member?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, but some office managers do that. They just jump in and get the staff back on track themselves. And that's wrong because I know that office manager is competent. They would not be the office manager if they were not competent.
But now to that point,
Yes.
and I know that this is not really a black and white answer. This is shades of gray.
Yeah.
But let's say you're the OM.
Yeah.
And your scheduler's having a rough time.
Yeah.
They're doing a poor job. They show up at the morning meeting. Most of the doctor's primary procedures have blown out that morning.
Yeah.
I mean, would you not, as the manager at that point, you go, okay, you ramp through the meeting real quick, you figure out what we're doing today, then you're right in scheduling at that point. And if your scheduler's somewhat broken, you might have to do some of the work yourself.
Well, yeah, you said it. It's a little bit of a judgment call because if it's catastrophic, yeah, you have to get it back on track yourself and then correct the staff member.
But then it may be like, maybe this person isn't going to correct and I got to replace them. Or maybe they just needed, a little bit of me in there showing them like, this isn't going to fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, ultimately, right, you hope every staff member is going to make it.
Of course.
Right. But it's not always a reality. And you have to be able to differentiate who can I train and who can't I train. Right. So as a manager. So I think taking over the person's position and doing it yourself, as you said, is something that you reserve for only catastrophic.
That's like the last resort.
Yeah. But otherwise, no, let the staff member do it.
Get them doing it, get them winning again.
Yeah, get them back on track. I mean, we're not always perfect. Nobody's
Right.
perfect all the time, and people have bad days, and sometimes people get caught off guard, and their area goes like a bad souffle, and somebody needs to get it back going
Sure.
and kind of give them the courage. Like, no, you can do this. What do you want to do here? Well, I want to do this, this, and this. Good, go do it. I'll check
Or
up
call
on
this
you.
person. Why don't you try this instead?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like, and I'll check back up on you.
So let's say I've done the morning meeting.
Yes.
I've run it. I'm the manager.
Yeah,
I've gone to the various, hopefully
Yeah.
not that many, team
Yeah.
members that are underperforming right now and got that back on track.
Yeah.
What am I doing next?
The next thing that I do is if your staff have checklists, I would just kind of make sure that they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing that day.
Okay, so like daily checklist by position.
That's
which
exactly
we do
right.
have those.
Yeah.
This is my shameless plug here. On our online platform, DDS Success,
We
we do
do.
have them for financial coordinator, treatment coordinator.
We have them for every
we have
position there.
different positions. All right, so then I go in and check on everybody's checklist.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what do I do?
Well, the next thing that you do once everything's under control is the office manager throughout the day. So we laid out that action list, that lineup.
Right, how are we going to make things go today?
Right. And in there were a bunch. It was almost like we choreographed this entire dance.
Sure.
like this person is here and that person is there, and then this person does that, and then routes it to this person who does that with the patient. It's like we put this whole dance together. Well, the office manager needs to go make sure that that's actually happening.
And that's critical.
Yes.
That's critical because you could have it where, okay, things are rolling.
Yes.
Doc saw that patient. Now they're with the treatment coordinator. Let's say you got 2 docs and 1 treatment coordinator. Next doc is about to route another patient that needs to see a treatment coordinator. Treatment coordinator still with the first patient.
That's right.
Who's watching that? It's more than being a traffic cop.
That's right.
The office manager is getting that flow figured out. Okay, good. I'll grab that patient, or I'll have the patient see the financial coordinator who can treatment coordinate once in a while.
Yes.
Boom, throw them in there, and then moving this along and keeping the place moving so that all the targets are being met.
That's correct. And keeps everything on track and adjusts as necessary.
Okay, good.
Right. And so they are doing that throughout the day. They're almost the eyes watching all this activity, making sure that it pulls off correctly.
Yeah, so just to be clear, the OM job isn't actually any executive job. Is not just sitting at a desk.
No.
Yeah, well, some people think that.
No.
You know, it's not, you're moving all the time. So
Yes.
while I'm doing other stuff,
Yes.
in between I'm making sure, wait a minute, that patient was supposed to go see so-and-so now. Let me go look and
Yes.
see what happened. And
Yes.
I'm doing this, and I'm checking this, and I'm checking that, and debugging this. And so that I'm doing that throughout the day.
That's correct.
Okay, good. And I know we have a bunch more on this. Just
Yes.
looking at the time I've destroyed the 30 minutes or less, you and I
I think we always say
promise.
that.
Yeah, well, not always. I think we
Okay,
came in at 29 minutes last time.
Oh, that's
That was pretty
good.
good. So I think this is a good point here. This is about where we plan to cut it off for part 1.
Yeah.
And when we come back for part 2, this is where we get into the rest of the office manager's daily duties as well as some office manager weekly duties. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So, folks, that's all we have for you this week. I do have the office manager checklist that Sabri's referencing available for download on the episode webpage. We also have the morning production meeting handout available for download on the episode webpage. And Sabri, anything you'd want to tell them about what to expect next episode?
Next time, there's a lot of duties that the office manager has. Besides just running sales or figuring out sales.
Right.
Right. And those are the things that I was alluding to earlier.
Right.
That if you do these things well, you never run into a situation where things are a disaster.
Good point. Yeah, it's like future it's making sure the future is good.
Correct.
Exactly. All right, folks, that's all we have for you this week. Sabri, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
And we'll continue on with this in the next episode. And if you have any questions about MGE, you can always find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. Folks, have a great week. We'll see you at the next episode.